Hello. Uh, Public speaking. I guess I'm going to have to get used to it. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up tonight. A lot of people I don't know, a lot of people I've seen around. I wasn't sure exactly what to talk about tonight, but I guess what people are interested in finding out is why all of this even happened. It seems there's been a lot of speculation, misinformation out there. Our jury has been told that this was all about cows. This situation had absolutely nothing to do with cows for a vast majority of us. The reason I went to Bunkerville myself was because of the First Amendment. It was the Constitution that drew a lot of us to Bunkerville. The overreach of the federal government. The BLM had set up an area off to the side of their cattle gathering. They had told anybody that wanted to come down and protest what they were doing, they were not allowed out where they were working, out where anybody could see them. They had to go to a First Amendment zone. Well, America is a First Amendment zone. It's not a snow fence on the side of a highway. So finding out about this and then watching videos of the BLM actually strong-arming 60-year-old women, throwing them onto the ground from behind, arresting a Bundy because he was sitting on the side of the road with his iPad filming what the BLM was doing. They rubbed him in the ground, 8 armed men. He was unarmed. Threw him in jail overnight. Released him the next day with no charges filed. This was what was happening in Bunkerville before Americans got involved. Before they went down and told the government, no thank you. We'd like to be able to hold you somewhat accountable. The day of the standoff, we were told by the sheriff of Clark County, Nevada, at 9 o'clock in the morning that the BLM had ceased operations. They were removing all of their assets and leaving town. Everybody was pretty happy about this, and they decided to go and see the cows be released. Well, when we showed up at Toquak Wash, that's not what was happening. There was over 100 BLM agents out there. There was SWAT teams. There was Park Service, and there was Clark County Sheriff's Department, Metro. Everything was still calm for quite a while. And then all of a sudden a woman runs down the road screaming, they're getting ready to shoot Americans. We need help at the wash. They're pointing guns at Americans. And that's basically what led to the entire standoff. We walked down the freeway. There's a prayer group. The BLM has taken a beat on. Government getting ready to shoot peaceful protesters in a prayer group. This is what the country's come to. Luckily, everything ended safely. Metro stepped in. They took over, told the BLM they needed to back off. The cows were released, and everybody went home. The violence that had been going on, had been happening in Nevada, was over for a time being. 2 years later, we have the FBI shows up, and they start arresting everybody. Well, not everybody, but approximately 20 of the men that were involved in the standoff. There was 11 charges that I originally was charged with, adding up to a total of over 120 years. Could have spent life in prison for standing up for First Amendment. Luckily, one of the charges had to be dropped because it could not be attached to a crime of violence. So automatically we had 25 years taken off of our sentence. We went through our first trial. jury was hung on 4 defendants. They found 2 defendants guilty on various charges. We thought, well, this should be it, you know, a hung jury. Usually it's innocent until proven guilty, and there has to be reasonable doubt for that innocence. Unless they're certain that you're guilty, then it's innocent. We figured, well, we've been found innocent. That's not the way the prosecution looked at it, though. They seem to have a real vendetta against us. They rolled us into a second trial. The second trial comes around. The first trial took quite a while. The government, witness after witness after witness on the stand. The jury didn't seem to like that. It took too long, and they never proved their case. So in the second trial, all of a sudden they decided there will be no witnesses, at least not for the defense. They did put a few witnesses out for the prosecution, but as far as the defense was concerned, we didn't have any witnesses. All of our witnesses, the government said that they needed to proffer their testimony. So they had to come before the judge and the prosecution on Skype. The judge and the prosecutor would listen to their testimony, and they says, well, this has nothing to do with these defendants. So no, we're not going to allow what the government did. As defendants, we weren't able to talk to the jury about what happened then. We were not allowed to tell them why we went. We were not allowed to tell them what we saw or what we felt. My co-defendant, Eric Parker, was pulled off of the stand because he started to talk about snipers that he had seen on a mesa above us. He didn't even get that out. The judge pulled him off of the stand. You're not allowed to talk. Luckily, I knew what was going on. I saw what I had to do, and I made it through the entire testimony. There were definitely objections, and I was warned a couple of times about what was happening, but in the end I did finally get enough out there that I believe the jury saw what was going on. When deliberations were over, and we're sitting there in the jury, in the courtroom, and we're waiting to find out what's going to happen to us for the rest of our lives. The jury started reading off not guilty verdicts. And I don't think I've ever felt as much relief in my life as I did at that time. And it was pretty amazing to watch the judge after, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 not guilties, and she looks over at the jury, and you could tell that she was furious. She did not like what was happening. What I saw there was the government is trying to put out a message. They're trying to tell America that it is not okay to say no thank you to the government for any reason. They will tell you what you're to do, and you're to fall in line. We've seen other examples of protests going on around the country. They're not pretty. I learned a lot from what is going on after getting out, because 19 months in prison. I had a lot of catching up with America to do. And it scares me. It really does. I'm slated for a 3rd trial. There are still 2 charges resting above my head. One for assault assault on a federal officer and one for use or carry of a firearm during a crime of violence. Well, there was no violence out there. All the conspiracy charges have been dropped, threatening charges have been dropped. But we had one juror who decided that she needed to put a couple of guilty charges on the two of us, Eric Parker and myself. So we've been slated for a third trial. The beginning of next month, we will be going back to Nevada again. The judge has determined that it would not be in their best interest to try the two of us by ourselves, so they're going to roll us into another tier of the trial, another 5 men that have yet to be tried. So now, instead of us two facing our charges, it is going to be 7 of us facing 76, almost 80 charges again. But I have faith. I have seen a lot of support. The support has come from this community. It's come from around the United States, and it's come from around the world, to be honest. People are watching what's happening. We're at a point where people need to make up their minds just where they do stand. We either have to acknowledge our Constitution, and we have to defend it, we have to support it, and we have to claim it. Because if we don't, we're going to lose it. They've tried to take it away from us. There were a few hundred people that said, no, thank you. We're going to stand for the Constitution. Most of them have been called our unindicted co-conspirators. I'm not sure exactly how many people the government would try over this case, but that is where they're going. They weren't happy with the 20 of us, so they thought that they would try to scare off anybody that might stand and talk for us. I'm not sure where to go from here, other than I know that my attorney, I have a lot of faith in him. He's done an excellent job, Todd Leventhal from Las Vegas, and he is excited about this next trial. He has seen what's happened. He's been converted. He is now a constitutional lawyer. He wasn't sure at first, but America is showing their colors. He sees what's going on, and we're going to continue to fight. There will be no more plea deals taken. So it's a long, hard road, but I've had a lot of support. I know there's been a lot of prayers. I know what I have to do as an American. I know where I have to go, what I have to stand for. And I'm not ready to let them go yet. We're going to go back in, and we're going to fight again. And we're going to let another group of jurors come in and say not guilty. And we're going to send a message. America is not ready to go down without a fight. I didn't have a whole lot prepared. I just thought that I would come in, give you a basic rundown of what had happened. If anybody has any specific questions.
So on your next trial, do you know right now if they're going to play the same game and not allow for your witnesses to come in?
All I can do is assume that they will. They're trying to say that there is no such thing as a First Amendment right or a Second Amendment right when it comes to the federal government. You must do whatever you are told.
basically just trying to take away the Constitution.
So when you say they, is this coming, do you get this vibe coming from the judge? Specifically, is it just throughout the whole prosecution?
I get this from, well, I know that the prosecution, they definitely need another win. But the judge is doing everything that she can to help them. And talking with other lawyers, other judges, they have never seen anything like this. My attorney himself, he was completely flabbergasted with what has happened in this trial. He's tried law all over the United States, and he says never in his life has he seen a judge that just disregarded any type of jurisprudence.
What did the county sheriff do in this whole?
The county sheriff, he didn't want to be involved. This situation between the Bundys and the BLM, I guess, had gone on for 20 years plus. He had in the past been involved, talked to him, but he didn't seem real interested in supporting Cliven against the federal government. He did come out on a Saturday, that Saturday morning, and he told us about the BLM putting forth a public release that they were shutting down the operation, they were removing their assets, and they would be leaving the Gilbert area. He said that dealing with the cows, he was asked from the crowd, what about the cows? He said that they were where they had always been, and that was something that needed discussed, and then he left. And no one saw him after that. It wasn't until we actually got out to the Toquap Wash, and then Metro, his men from Vegas, there was quite a bunch of them showed up. They created a line between the protesters and the BLM, and it was actually them that told the BLM that they needed to leave, and they needed to leave now. They did take the initiative, and they stood there at the gates, and they kept everything calm. So, in the end, it was the county sheriff, I believe, that kept the situation calm and from going any further.
Are you going to have the same judge?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Scott, I can't imagine what you've been through, and I appreciate your courage for standing up, where many of us lived in the comfort of our homes while we were incarcerated. And I'm wondering, why is it that you were incarcerated without bail months after the incident? What's the explanation of that?
I honestly don't know the reason that they came after us 2 years later. I would have assumed that it would have been sooner. I guess it was because they were trying to build the case. I don't know how many of you know what a terabyte of information is, but 1,000 gigabytes, and our discovery was 1.4 terabytes of information, hours of videos, chest cams, dash cams, FBI undercover recordings where they claim to be documentary makers. This we all had to go through. And the funny thing about it is the government decided that they didn't want any of it coming out for public view. So with all of this information that can prove exactly what happened, they don't want to show it. In fact, there's a protective order on most of this information.
Made by the same judge?
Yes.
Can that be contested?
It has been contested. And none of our motions see the light of day, according to going through Julian or Navarro.
You said there are two people that were convicted, in a sense, I believe. One of them was Greg Burlington, is that right?
Yes.
Paid FBI informant, how does that work?
Well,
Did they hang him out to dry? And
I'm not sure. I hate to hazard a guess about Greg Brooklyn. But I do know, and what I will say, is that he committed no crimes that day. He did nothing that anybody else didn't do. In fact, he did less. So it's hard to say. It was up to the jury. And I don't know what was on their mind, why they did give him all of those charges. And I hate to hazard a guess.
Scott, could you explain to them the privatized prison that we're at in Pahrump as far as what the living conditions are for 100 men in one cell or one unit?
All right.
friends?
What's that?
Did you make any friends too?
I made a lot of friends. Actually, everybody in there was friendly. They knew that we shouldn't be there. There were a lot of men in there that knew that they needed to be in prison. People, that had stabbed 6, 7, 8 people. They knew that they needed to be in jail. They also saw what had happened with us, and they knew that we didn't deserve to be in that type of a situation. But anyway, we were in pods. There were 96 bunks in each pod, double bunks. 5 feet away from you, you've got the toilets and the showers. 10 feet on the other side of the bunks, you've got tables for lunch, for dinner, breakfast. 2 microwaves, 5 phones. So it got a little bit crowded in there. There were tempers that flared at times, but that many people from those many different walks of life jammed into those conditions. It was actually, it was well maintained. So, yeah, the conditions though, for something, I guess the military, there was some military men in there that said it was pretty close to that. If anybody here's been in the military and remembers that. But yes, strip searches every day when you come back. You're not allowed glitter on cards. Somebody sends you a Christmas card. Can't be any glitter on it. No hardcover books. I was actually denied one book because it had paper in it. Was the response given. It was an origami book, a couple pieces of loose paper. That's not allowed in there. The COs kind of make up their own mind as to what they want to have happen. There's a rule book, but in the end, it's whatever they decide. So you just figure out who you're working with, how you have to work with them, and live your life a day at a time.
Scott, in the end, when you are found innocent, do you have recourse against the government for your loss of time, your incarceration, and the whole horrible story?
There's going to be a lawsuit. We'll see how it turns out.
So, would it be beneficial to file a lawsuit at this moment, accusing the government and certain officials of abuse of their position and power? I mean, I'm not that knowledgeable about how all those things play out, but rather than waiting to find out what the jury's going to decide and how the judge is going to manipulate it, is there a benefit to possibly creating a counter lawsuit and not suing the government in a sense, but individuals that were there, such as the Love guy specifically a lawsuit naming them, because when you try to sue the government, you got a big battle. But all of a sudden, when you want to file a lawsuit against government officials that have been, abused their power and their positions, all of a sudden it raises their eyebrows because they may not have this big protection coming from behind them. It's a personal lawsuit that they have,
And at this point, I don't know. I believe that there have been some lawsuits filed. I know that there's been a lot of motions put forward, trying to get some kind of relief from these people. But, I'm more concerned with getting these charges behind me first, and then we'll step up into the next realm.
Could you describe your day you got arrested? Was that why when they came to get you?
All right, the day I was arrested, they actually arrested me in Salmon, Idaho. I had gone up to Salmon I had been called a couple of days prior about unemployment insurance. And they told me that with my claim, they needed to see me in Salmon in person before they could continue forward. So that morning, I woke up, I saw a message come across my phone, and it was from Eric Parker's wife. She was looking for the president of the Idaho 3%. So I talked with her, and I found out that Eric had been arrested. So I knew what was happening. I knew that it was coming. So I went on with my day. I got in my truck. I went down to the Stinker store. I went out and I talked to my boss. I told him that I was probably being arrested that day. I told my mother that I may not be back that afternoon. So I drove to Salmon, pulled into the parking lot, stepped out of my truck. As I'm approaching the door, there were 5, 6 men probably, full tactical gear, rifles. All of a sudden I have red dots all over me. Cars slide in behind, dogs are pulled out, the sheriff's there, the local police are there. I would imagine there was probably between 15 and 20 men that showed up for that arrest. So I actually put my hands up. I didn't want shot. They took me into custody and drove me around the Idaho Falls way to Boise. It was a long trip, but they did give me a bottle of water on the way. So they said they were being missed, and that's how my arrest went.
How did they know you were examined?
In that 1.4 terabytes of information, they had a breakdown of everything that I had done that day. They knew that I exited my house and got in my truck at 9:30 that morning. They knew that I had stopped at the Stinker station. They knew that I had gone out to my boss's house. I'm not sure what they had watching me or who they had watching me, but there was surveillance all that day.
Well, with the unemployment being part of the government, couldn't they have talked to them and gotten it set up so they knew you would be there at a certain time?
I have a feeling that they may have set up the entire situation. But
Well, if you guys hadn't had guns that day, then there are a few of you, what would have happened? You've been totally overrun, wouldn't you?
there's a lot of people that are convinced that they would have been killed. I can't say for sure what would have happened, but I do know that there had been violence by the BLM on multiple occasions leading up to that day. And it was that day when we showed up and we were armed, that there was no violence. And that's my entire theory about being armed. It brings civility to a conversation. I told this to the undercover FBI agents. That's why we were armed. If they're armed and I'm armed, then we talk. But if there's 100 of them that are armed, people just end up on their face in the gravel, in jail. If charges are going to be pressed, we don't even know. But, yeah, we brought some civility to the situation.
Could you describe what happened that day? Just, you know, what you did, what they did, how long it took?
From the time that we actually ended up on the freeway, everybody thought that there was just going to be a little protest at the entrance to what we came to find out was the BLM impound compound. They had a lot of trailers out there, stock pens. It was a situation most of us didn't even realize was going on. We had no idea that this was there. We thought we were going to show up, according to what the sheriff had said. Somebody would go up, pull the pin on the cattle gates. We'd watch the cows come home and everybody would leave. We were actually in the parking lot for probably 40 minutes, talking with Metro, dealing with Metro. They were just telling people to be calm. This will take a little bit of time, but everything's going to be fine. Everything will work out. And it was after that 40 minutes that a woman came running down the freeway, screaming about them pointing guns at protesters at the prayer group. At that point, there was pretty much a mad dash down the freeway to see what was happening, where this wash was, who was pointing guns, why.
What was that distance?
Was that
What was that distance down the freeway?
400, 500 yards probably? When I walked out onto the overpass, onto the bridge, I looked off to the left-hand side and saw some BLM vehicles behind a stock, a cattle fence. You know, your metal fencing. They had that set up underneath one of the bridges. Directly behind that were 3 Park Service trucks. They weren't even BLM trucks. They were United States Park Service, Park Police. A lot of men milling around behind those. A few of them set up on the side. They were in what they call a stack, 4 guys deep. Come to find out later that there were 40-millimeter grenade launchers in the stack. There were pepper ball guns in the stack. The person up front had a bulletproof shield and AR-15s in that stack. More federal officers started moving up the wash. They started driving in their cars, in their trucks. At this point, nobody seemed to be really sure about exactly what was going on. It was still kind of a relaxed atmosphere. We're just standing on the side of the freeway, watching. More cars come, more cars come. There were some binoculars in the crowd. Some people started passing those around. We're looking through the binoculars. And you can see more BLM agents. They come up, they get out of their trucks. Now they're leaning over the hoods of their trucks, over the beds, and they've got us sighted. They've got their scopes on us. They've got their sights on us. More keep coming up. Cowboys, they came in to the wash. They form what they call the skirmish line in the middle, about halfway in between the 2 bridges. protesters moved up. So now you've got guys on horseback, and you've got men, women, and children. A few dogs down there, lined up in the wash. And there's a lot of chanting about BLM go home, give us back our cows. But nobody is assaulting this gate, as the prosecution put forward. Finally, Dan Love, who was an agent in charge, he was in command of all of this from the BLM. And he walks up to the gate. A few other people walked up to talk with him. At this point, you know, I'm 100, 130 yards away. So I'm not exactly sure what did happen at the gate at that time. But I'm watching a few of the people from the protesters move up. Dan Love's talking. And at a point, most of the crowd moved up to within a few yards of the gate. There's still more BLM, more Park Service, more rangers coming into the wash. There's a megaphone. Somebody's talking over the PA out of one of the trucks. Really windy day. It's really hard to hear what they're saying. Those of us on the bridge with the rifles that I was involved with, we saw that this situation is getting heated. We're not sure exactly what's happening. So we took a kneeling position. Get down behind the barriers, get down behind the concrete. Don't let them see the weapons. We're not trying to escalate the situation. We're trying to keep them home. Get your weapons out of sight. Finally, the crowd starts talking about, they're saying over the loudspeaker that they're going to shoot people if they do not disperse. This is the point where the famous pictures come from. And there's a picture of my co-defendant, Eric Parker, and I, and we went prone on the bridge, getting out of sight. They say this is when we took on sniper positions. But the fact of the matter is that from where we were, you really couldn't see these guys down there. We're more trying to get out of sight. Watch what the crowd's doing, because we don't know what is going to happen here. Finally, as I say, the sheriff's department showed up at the gate, and they told the BLM that they needed to back up, they needed to leave the area. And it was when the BLM left that we finally came back into view.
So the journalists that were taking your pictures, the famous gun pictures, were they standing out, moving around, or were they taking cover too?
There was journalists right next to me,
right.
And
yeah, I've seen some pictures.
She is also taking cover.
Okay. They weren't standing up and moving around. They had to move around.
There were some people that were, but
yeah.
then there were also others that they were as afraid as I was, and they were taking cover too. There was, you know, everybody was up there taking pictures. Forest Service employees, individuals,
cell phone cameras.
Yeah, media, a lot of cameras.
That journalist that was with you, did she ever get a chance to speak with you?
There was one journalist, David Michael Lynch. He does some news reporting for Fox News, and he talked about this on the Kelly Files. He had actually put out a movie about what happened, a documentary. In the first trial, he did get to speak. He got on the stand, and he testified to the jury that he walked back to the prayer group, and he told them that they have said that they're going to kill you. Well, after that testimony, he didn't get to trial. He didn't get to testify in our second trial. So yeah, it's the judge is picking and choosing what the jury gets to hear. It's all for them.
Shocked about that too.
When you go back, will you and Eric have to go back to prison to attend the court, or will you guys be released?
No, at this point, we're going to be able to stay, you know, in private houses or wherever we are. We don't have to go back to prison for this next trial.
I would highly recommend that you don't, wherever you stay, don't trust the government, but the government might try to take out a problem. Don't be trusting just anything.
Yeah, there's, we've learned a lot about what they're capable of, what they're willing to do. And, no, there is no trust.
What was the first thing you did when you got home?
The first thing I did when I got home, I hugged my mother. Any more? Well, I guess I will turn the time over to, oh, yes.
Well, a lot of people in Chalice have watched and followed and listened. Actually, you and Aaron actually birthed the Concerned Citizens, is that right, Lisa? We came here actually to a meeting that you didn't show up to. I think they'd already taken you away. So we want you to know that, that I think we were birthed, Concerned Citizens were birthed out of going to the BLM meeting that we went to that day that they were writing down you know what. And we want you to know that last winter we had a Constitution class, the Concerned Citizens, and we're trying really to help educate Chalice so that they can understand what they're losing by not participating. So we really appreciate you coming and talking. And I hope everybody in this room shares with what you're telling us. So there's good in Chalice happened.
Well, thank you, and thank Chalice. Thank you to Chalice. It's what needs to happen.
So is there any chance that there can be copies of the video of his phone? That is, I don't know. Is there means that people can get copies of this?
I would like to introduce Andrea Parker. This is Eric's wife that is live streaming this. She is the one that we tried to keep up and keep things posted so that everybody knew what was going on. I will let Andrea explain how we can see this and where we can watch it.
Can I make another comment behind that, though? Is a lot of people on Facebook put all their personal information out there, and I think that that's just a real big problem, because if things progress in this country and it doesn't turn around, citizens that's in this room are going to find themselves probably in a situation like you, and everything's out there on Facebook for the government. I don't think people should put down their birthdays. I don't think they should even have current pictures of their children. They should have misinformation on where they went to school, because it will be used against you. And I think social media, the public today, is way too trusting that this is like opening up a photo album, sharing with my friends, and don't trust it. Don't. You can talk to your friends, you can talk to family, but you don't have to put every little detail out there. It's just foresight.
And the government will use that, because they did try to bring in Facebook posts to show our supposed intent. So yes, you have to be careful about what you put out there. The good thing about it was our intent was it was always good. and the jury saw through it. So you have to have faith that the juries, the American people, they still understand what's going on, and ultimately it is up to the American people what happens. So we have to have faith in that.
I'd just like to make a short statement that I went to the arraignment, and it was very obvious to me it was a railroad job right from the beginning. Your attorney did an excellent job. There was no reason why you shouldn't have been given bail. And so it was set right at that point. That was April 2016.
Just an aside, Scott, I want you to know, and Dorothy has seen it too, the American flag is still flying at the edge of the bridge there at Bunkerville.
All right.
It was there last winter.
Good. Good.
It has not been moved.
Better than what they've done to Lavoy Finicum. Keep tearing down his monument. Well, is that it then? I will turn the time over to Dorothy Moon.
Let's let Andrea explain how this goes.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
So, the video is on Facebook Live right now, so it will be there, and then as soon as it's over, you can find it on YouTube. When we get it on the channel, I'll repost it.
So it's titled what?
Right now, it's Scott Drexler Speaks,
Okay.
but when we put it on YouTube, it'll be a little bit of a different title. I can post it on my page, so I can get it to Scott's page.
All right, Dorothy?
Thank you.
First of all, as your legislator, there have been a lot of things behind the scenes that you're not probably aware of, but it's all coming to light this week with an article that was put out by the Las Vegas Review-Journal in response to a letter that I wrote and got 34 other legislators to sign. I guess, I don't know if I'm supposed to do that sort of thing, but I was compelled to, and I'll get to that in just a minute. When I was first sworn in December 1st of last year, one of the first things I wanted to do was go down and see Scott. And Scott, I think we've known each other 10 years, maybe 10 years now, for quite a while. And it was something I wanted to do was to go see him down in Pahrump and to go meet all the other Idaho detainees at the same time. And at the time, I thought there were 4. So Dar and I drove down the 16th of December, and it was a pretty snowy day. There's a lot of snow on Highway 93, and I remember that the radio station that we picked up was so supportive of these guys. They were coming on and talking about the Constitution and how these guys have been incarcerated and what they were standing for at the Bunkerville standoff. And I thought, well, this is great. This is pretty positive. So anyway, we get down there, and these guys only get 1 hour of visitation a week. 1 hour. Luckily, I've sent Scott and I think Ammon a letter and asked them to please save their hour for me and Dar to meet with them. So we get down there on Saturday and go to Pahrump and met with Scott first and then Ammon. And I'd never met him, but I wanted to meet Ammon because Ammon's another one of my constituents. He lives in Jim County. So he's in Emmett. So I've got 2 of the 5 that are my constituents. So yes, I now have a very vested interest in their well-being. So so Sunday I said, well, I guess I should come back. We should come back tomorrow and see the other 2. And they said, no, there's 3. I said 3, and they said, yeah, there's Eric Parker and there's Todd Engel and there's Steve Stewart. I said, I don't know that it's Steve Stewart. Anyway, Steve Stewart was friends of Eric, and he lives in Haley also. And so anyway, we met with those 3, and I met with Ammon again. And I will tell you right now, meeting with Ammon, he is one of the most outstanding people I have ever met, and a very intellectual explanation of multiple use of lands and how it used to be when we were a territory and in early statehood. The way he explains it needs to be taught in schools. I mean, I thought, boy, that was just clear as as all get out. So Ammon is a very smart man, and I'm proud to be trying to help him out as well as the other Idahoans. After that trip, I immediately went back and talked to Attorney General Wasden. And I wanted to speak to Attorney General Wasden and say, and what could we do? As a state, what can we do to help our 5 Idahoans? He said, Dorothy, we can do nothing. I said, why nothing? He said, well, it's like a train track. You have federal and you have state, and nowhere do they intermix or cross. I said, okay. So I crossed off the old AG. I thought, okay, I'll take him off my list because I knew I wouldn't get anywhere there. That I was aware of at the time was that Clive and Bundy and Bundy were hiring counsel. So they were the ones who had to fund funds to be able to pay for their lawyers. In May, did a fundraiser for the Ammon Bundy Defense Fund. We also sent out multiple, and some of you probably see some of those emails where we're asking you to send money down to the Bundy Defense Fund also that Carol was trying to raise and would disseminate out to some of the folks. So there's a lot of generosity in this room, and I really do appreciate it. After that time, I decided, okay, I'm going to have to write Attorney General session. So June 1st, and this was right after Trump had returned from Europe. Remember, he was gone for a couple of weeks, and I thought, I'm going to send a letter to AG Sessions, to Trump, copy it to Trump, and then, let's see, yeah, I think that was pretty, yeah, those two, and then our congressional delegation. And I was asking to please help my friend Scott Drexler, who I've known from Chalice for years, and to help Ammon Bundy, because they're my constituents. And then I said, there's 3 other men from Idaho we need to help too. That was June 1st. I got the certified receipt back on the 7th. I got a letter on August 15th, right before Eclipse weekend. So they posted it August 15th. I received it in my mail on the 22nd. Which I believe is the same day the second trial ended. So anyway, I was involved that way. I also was in Vegas and went to their trial on the first verdict reading. And I kind of missed that part of it. But what was interesting was, I've never been to a federal court. Well, no, not a federal court. And when I went in there, I had my cell phone on me, and the marshals were pretty upset. And I had my badge. It said Representative Dorothy Moon, but it wasn't getting me any points at all. I was trying whatever I could to get into the room. I wanted to go in and see what was happening. And the one fellow, he said, you can't go in. You need to go put your cell phone in the car. I said, I don't have my car here. I did an Uber over here. Well, you can't be up here. You can't have a cell phone. Well, then it did. The only thing it said was you cannot have a cell phone in the courtroom. I said, excuse me, sir. It says right here, no cell phone in the courtroom. I'm okay on this floor. And I thought, really, I'm going to get in a fight with a marshal over a cell phone? So then this other marshal came over. He said, ma'am, I'll take your cell phone for you. So I did get to go into the courtroom. And then what I saw was pretty interesting. And just as Scott said, Gloria Navarro, the judge, is pretty easy to read. So they get out a scorecard like this. And I'll have to make Scott a copy. He doesn't have one. So it lists the charges, and it has Greg Burleson, and there's Scott, and then Todd, and Ricky Lovely, and Eric Parker, and Stephen Stewart. So she gets a packet, an envelope with all these papers in it, and Andrea did a better job of explaining all this because she's been through it for such a long time. But the judge starts flipping through it, blank, blank, blank. About the 5th blank, her face looks over at the foreman, jury foreman, and like, what is going on here? Anyway, and as Scott did explain, Greg Burleson was found with some charges, as was Todd Engel, who's one of our guys. He's from Boundary County, so I'm very concerned about him too. His sentencing for these charges have been brought up onto September 28th, and I believe it was supposed to be a July date, but he pushed him off in fear of getting probably a very high sentence. So that'll be one that we need to track and to follow. So after I got the letter from Sessions, it was a perfect storm. And this is where the legislature now is involved. So the response from the Attorney General's office, because we were asking for a meeting with Sessions, and we had about 5 to 6 Western legislators who would fly out in a heartbeat to meet with him, just give us an hour. And give us 2 weeks to arrange the flights so we could get out there at the same time. And in the letter it says it's an unwritten policy that the DOJ's office does not meet with anyone when there is a pending case. Well, the case was no longer pending for these guys because we just had our second round of acquittals and a hung jury with 11-1 to acquit. That was just read on the 22nd, I believe. And then I called the AG's office to the man who wrote the letter. And I asked him if we would now be able to meet with Attorney General Sessions. He said, well, I'm not aware that the trial's over. I said, yes, it is. And I think that it's time for us to meet because I understand they're considering a third trial. And he said, well, I can't talk to you about it. I said, how many times are you going to try these guys? 5, 6, 7, until you get some guilty sentence? Is that what it is? And he didn't say anything. And I said, well, let me ask you this much, because with my first letter that I mailed in June 1st, I had 12 other legislators sign on very quickly. And I said, in the office, is Attorney General Sessions aware that there are Idaho legislators upset with what's going on with their citizens? He said, yes, we do know that the AG's office is aware. I said, great, I guess that's all we need for now. So I hung up, and then afterward I found out they were going to do a pre-trial hearing. So fast forward to this letter. On the 27th, I found out the date was the 31st, and I wanted to get a letter out as fast as possible. So I wrote something up on the 27th, sent it over to Representative Judy Boyle, who is our agricultural chair in the legislature, and she proofed it, added a few comments, and then we started calling legislators. We were very lucky to get 34 of them on the phone in the middle of summer. And we added their names to the letter, and then we also said, well, let's grab some retired legislators. So Lenore Barrett signed on. We got Joanne Wood. We got Pete Nilsson. So Pete also signed on. And then we got 2 senators, Senator Monty Pierce and also Senator Cheryl Nexel. These are all very good conservative retired legislators. So they signed on, and the letter went out. Well, I called Scott. I said, Scott, can I get the email for your attorney? And I wanted to send it to them. Now, this letter went out not only to Sessions, copied to Trump, copied to our 4 congressional leaders. I can't wait to hear what they have to say. Copied it also to the Judiciary Committee head, Congressman Goodlatte. He's got it now. He's the chair of that committee, and also to Grassley, who's the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So they know what the heck's going on. We've got a situation where due process is not working too well in this court. It's an obvious political type of situation where they just want to get these men, and it all counts. So the third trial seemed very excessive, and that's why we were able to get these legislators to jump on board. The letter was received. Todd Leventhal filed it with the court right before the hearing, so everybody knew the letter was there. I understand from Carol Bundy, and I don't know if you can verify this, Andrea and Scott, but Carol Bundy said that the judge and the prosecutor were a little more subdued than normal. So I don't know if maybe there is something coming down from higher up. I can only hope they're thinking what's going on. I want you to be aware that there's other letters that are out there from other big groups. I'm not going to talk about them right now until I know that the letter is in the hand of the AG's office. One is a big coalition of very conservative people. That's a multi-state group. I know there's a think tank group that is putting together a letter also. And one of the very exciting ones is Clayman. First name? Larry Clayman. And Larry Clayman is spectacular. He used to work for the DOJ, and he is also one of the founders of Judicial Watch. So he has been really in tune on this, and he wrote a very scathing letter to Sessions that what is going on here is pretty much what it says. So here we have a perfect storm of all these letters coming together, the audacity of trying to file charges for a third time when they've been proven guilty 2 times is not innocent. I'm sorry. I'm innocent. Not guilty. Innocent. I'm sorry. Can we turn that off? I'm going to be a comic after I'm a legislator. But no, they were found innocent 2 times, and it is ridiculous to file and go through another court date with them again. in talking to the Las Vegas Review-Journal reporter, we had a pretty good talk, and it was a very favorable article toward these men. He said that he cannot understand how they would try to put all these men together in front of one jury. They're going to have a really good score sheet to keep all of this straight. It's going to be very difficult, I think, to keep these two with almost no charges, with everybody else with multiple charges. I do plan on being down there. I've already booked my flights, I've booked my room, and Representative Judy Boyle will be with me. We're going down the 15th. Court date is the 16th. We will be there for the first 4 days of court anyway. And then we've got some other dates scheduled to be down there also. So we're going to be highly involved from this point forward. I do want to let you know that I've got these maps of Idaho, and I was trying to highlight really fast as folks were coming in. But you can see right here, this big yellow one is District 8. So your three representatives, your two representatives and Senator Thane and Representative Gestrin are supporting getting these men out. Also, we have Steve Vick and Vito Barbieri, and Eric Redmond just signed on, so we have all of District 2. Ever since I sent this letter, I saw on Facebook that some of these representatives were not called because Judy and I were flying through the roster of names. And so I did send out a letter yesterday at 5, and I said that I understand some of you would like to sign this letter, so please let me know by email if you would like to add your name. And since that letter, within 5 minutes, Eric Redmond did sign on, and then another one that signed on from District 12 was Robert Andhurst, and I think there's another one from Idaho Falls who's ready to jump on. As soon as we get 50%, I'm going for 50%. I've even asked the Democrats, I'm asking all of them. We've got to bring our guys home. We've got to get these charges dropped. These two men, Eric Parker and Scott Drexler, they're done as far as I'm concerned. This is an absolute waste of time. The $1.2 million it costs to try one of these cases because of all the public defenders, all of the witnesses, not to mention the 24 marshals that are sitting in the courtroom. So there's a lot of cost to this, and it isn't fair that the taxpayers continually pay for things because of someone's political agenda. So we have to keep fighting. I think now with all of these letters going in, I think we've got Sessions' attention. I know this has come out in every Idaho newspaper so far. Now is the time to write letters. If any of you want to pick one of these up with the yellow highlighted ones who did send in their names, go on that letter, thank them, or email them. You can go to the legislative website and say, thank you for supporting our men. We want them home. And do that. And then they'll tell their counterparts in their district, you know, maybe we should be signing on to this. So as soon as we get 50%, we'll do another press release, and we'll let them know that we're gaining traction. I am aware, I just found out yesterday, that other western states are taking the letter that was written, and they're going to model that letter, and they're going to get their own legislators to sign on too. So if we keep the social media, and I agree with you, the Facebook thing, I'm paranoid. In fact, I got the wrong birth date on mine. March 24th, I get all these happy birthdays. I'm going, why does everybody tell me happy birthday?
I'm 90 years old.
I didn't put the correct date on mine either because I'm goosey about that kind of stuff. However, we need to use social media in this manner. We've got to try to help these men and blast out. Andrea has been absolutely fantastic. I do not know where you get the energy. Well, I know where you get the energy. You do. You've got a great husband. We've got two patriots here. We need to get out and get these charges dismissed, and possibly before the trial date. Let's put the pressure on. So anything you can do will be appreciated. Now let's talk about funds. Just because they have public defenders does not mean they don't need money. Andrea goes down, she films this, she publicizes all of this information. That's on her dime. Same with Scott. If anybody wants to go down and see Scott, it's a hardship. You've got to take care of the kids. You've got to make sure the dog's in it. You've got to do something. And it is a lot of work, so they do need some funding. When we did the Ammon Bundy fundraiser, we gave out a little vial of gold because Dar and I are gold miners in our free time. And we were giving away a little 0.1 gram of gold for anybody who donated $100 to Ammon Bundy's Defense Fund. And we gave out quite a few gold vials. So we're going to do that again tonight. So if anybody wants to pledge or put in those those 2 jars or those 2 cans. There's so many of you, you can all just, we need more cans in here. But anyway, put some money in those. And they're doing this for you. I cannot say this enough. We're not the ones behind bars. Loss of freedom. It's these men who are. And they are doing it for, and I know a lot of you in this room, you know that we've spent a long time together studying the Constitution, and we don't take for granted our rights. And they've lost a lot of their rights.
So Dorothy, you have stuff for tonight, but for folks that aren't prepared to give tonight, what kind of means is there for there to donate and help out?
You know, I do know the Idaho Political Prisoner Fund. Josh. Who?
Donate to Tammy.
Oh, or donate to Tammy. You can donate.
I have a PayPal.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways you can do it. You can donate it to Tammy, and she'll make sure that not that you're going to be in jail again, but if you're in jail, you need a commissary. And they charge some unbelievable rates for the phone, for things they need. So they burn that money up pretty fast. And I know a lot of people who spend a lot of money in commissary. And also Andrea, we've got addresses for both of those. But if you also want to go to the IdahoPoliticalPrisoner.com, and Josh Gibbons, who's running for District 11A, is a great patriot, and he takes no money for this. And if you tell him, I want to give $5,000 to so-and-so, that's where it goes, every dime.
So can Tammy say her information?
Yes, Tammy, do you want to give an address?
It's paypal.me/
Oh, slow down. PayPal.me
/ 4OSD, capital OSD.
after the backslash what?
Number 4 OSD.
And that's it. Okay.
Okay, Andrea?
I'd like to drop anything off.
Oh, it is capital.
Make sure that.
Yeah, or
Just
Lisa will take
OSD
anything at
capital.
Dream Away Realty. Dolores, you know, guys see her all over the place. She's always driving around town. So if you guys want to get it to them, she's always cruising Maine. Anyway, if you guys can get money to them, that's great. But let's not forget about it. I know other people have told me they want to send some money in too. So they need to get beefed up if they go to trial on October 16th, which right now is in the works. Until that changes, let's say even if the charges were dropped, it takes a while to rebuild your life after being away for almost 2 years. So no matter what, think about that when you open your wallets. I really appreciate it. Lisa, that's it for me. Anybody have any questions for me?
I just have a statement. I
Yes.
want to say what you've done with the letter and the support that you've given us. You know, I have been on the outside while they're on the inside fighting and reaching out to people, and it was really kind of like bashing your head against the wall. And what you were able to do with that letter, I thank you so much, and I really hope that the other states take your lead, and we need to support you guys because you also stepped and put yourself on the line by doing that, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And and again, it isn't that we didn't. I've made these notebooks up for all 5 of our Idahoans when they get out. And when I was got, and I'll mail you your copy. But in there, we did have a memoriam that we wanted to pass that supported all of you. But when you go around and start talking, you don't know if you get the support because a lot of the legislators really don't know what's been going on. And because I got 2 constituents, it's not like somebody in Southeast Idaho was tracking this. So it's a big learning curve. Apparently 34 or 33 of them have been studying it a little bit more, which I'm excited about, and hopefully the rest of them will do the same. But I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. And again, let's get these guys out, open your wallets, get everybody else to open their wallets, and thank you so much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it.
I just want to thank everybody. It was very good to be able to do this. And Andrea, what you've done is not beat your head against the wall, because this is across the nation. People's eyes are open. We are fighting. for our rights, for our Constitution. And on a good note, I do want to say I did see that Joe was let out today. And I don't know if you guys know who Joe is, but Joe is the one that was put in prison for building a pond on his land. And he has been released today. So, it's not in for nothing. So we just need to stand up. You guys, please help yourself to refreshments. And